This is Shaun Sport in podcast form.
Well, we are coming off the back of a big weekend of football, particularly with the Derby being run and won yesterday. That was won by the purple team. And we've got one of the greatest of all time, Matthew Pavlich, joining us now. G'day, Pav.
Hello, Shawnee. Hello, Rove.
Mate,
Good morning to you both.
Big sigh of relief. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I think probably like most commentators and or Fremantle supporters heading to the game yesterday, expecting Fremantle to win, but weren't sure exactly how it would happen. But they just dismantled West Coast. They should have won by about 10 goals in the end. If you look at all the key stats and all the areas of the game that matter, Fremantle were far superior. So good signs, and I think validation for Justin Longmuir and his game style and some of the critics that have been on his bat. But given that the teams are about the same age yesterday, I think a lot of people were just a bit unsure exactly how it was all going to go. Could West Coast cause an upset? But they were smashed in the end by the Dockers.
I know I bring this up quite regularly, Rove. Most people don't understand that because the expectations of Freo are so high. And Pav knows this by doing all the statistics. But they're one of the youngest teams in the comp over the first 3 rounds. They're either the youngest or it was second or third.
I think like our average age is 24, I think.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And believe it or not, West Coast were older and more experienced than the Dockers yesterday. So the Dockers team were the 3rd youngest of the round, West Coast the 4th youngest. So in terms of rebuild, in terms of where both lists are at, it does highlight Fremantle in a much better position, much healthier position. West Coast with still some work to go. There were some signs yesterday. They didn't give in and they kept trying. But yeah, they've got a young team out there, the Dockers. If you think about the likes of Fife and Walters and Young and Darcy to come back as well. It's good that these young players are playing. I thought Murphy Reid was fantastic yesterday.
Yeah. O'Driscoll had a great game. Yeah. It's great to see him back in form.
Good. Yeah, no, there was a lot of good signs there. Caleb Sarong and Andy Brayshaw, the leaders, stepping up and delivering. They absolutely smashed the likes of Baker, Kelly, Reid and Graham in the midfield. But I think that's right. That second group of players. Nat Johnson after halftime got moving as well. So some good signs there for Freo ahead of a big clash against the Bulldogs on Sunday.
Yeah. Now a big part of the game was turnovers for the Eagles. Yeah. So from a bigger point of view for Dockers, yes, a solid win, we'll take it. But how much of it was we played the game we wanted to play, and how much of it was West Coast just had a shocker?
Oh, no, I think if you look at all the stats about sort of forward half intercepts, Fremantle had 33 of those and kicked 7 goals, 9 from their forward half sort of work. So a little bit of it was West Coast poor skills and turnovers. But I think the way, what Justin Longmuir did was they got back to their DNA, which was stoppage work, get the ball in their forward half and get repeat entry. So West Coast might win the ball back in their defensive 50, but then because of the pressure, because they were set up behind the ball, Alex Pearce led that defence. He did a job on Oscar Allen, the other skipper of the other team, and it meant that they found it really hard to execute their skills. I think they're still learning that game plan of Minnie McQualter, the Eagles, so they've got a bit of work to do on exactly how they want to play. But I think it's a feather in Justin Longmuir's cap and the Dockers the way they went about their business.
Yeah, the Eagles have got a few players to come back in, and obviously injuries are going to force them to roll out a team that's going to have a tough day at the office when they play GWS the week coming up. But that said, there's glaring holes in their midfield, Pav. I think they're years away from being able to get the complement of players they need to be competitive and actually going up the ladder.
Yeah, we talked about this at halftime yesterday on the coverage, but you got Liam Baker, I thought, tried really hard yesterday, particularly in the first half. Had a bit of the ball, but Tim Kelly, 10 possessions to halftime and no tackles. Jack Graham, 8 possessions, 3 tackles. Harley Reid, 7 possessions, 2 tackles. Liam Duggan, 6 possessions, 0 tackles. So that's their midfield at the moment. And they wanted really to play Baker across half-back. Elliot Yeo makes difference, absolutely,
big time.
If you make that point.
Big time.
He comes back into that team. And Dom Sheed, you just wonder where he's at with that knee and how long he'll be out for. But they've got some serious concerns about their depth. But look, it is a good opportunity to really play the younger team. And, we talked about them being the 4th youngest. Well, go younger again. Just really test the list out and see where it's at.
I was almost surprised by how little Harley Reid impacted on the game.
Rove, to be honest, I've seen him in round one, and he's come off the back of a pre-season that hasn't been at its best. Like, he's had a couple of injuries that cost him, and I know he spent some time in Melbourne, and he's not fit enough.
Doesn't look as fit yet.
He's not as fit enough, and
he has to play forward. He can't play in the midfield. You're right. He's underdone in terms of his midfield minutes, so he has to play up forward. And the problem is the ball wasn't down there yesterday at all. Freo had 28 more inside 50s, so the ball wasn't down there, and he ended up at half-back where he just didn't defend. So pre-seasons are so important. Everyone knows that, particularly when you're a big-name player and there's high expectations of you.
Should he be... the pressure on him is enormous, and, walking down the street and everybody knows where he's going. It's very difficult to be in his situation, and coming off a low base, I can't see how this season's going to pan out the way West Coast Eagles supporters would want for him. It's just too hard to come back from.
Well, surely it seems like they're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place, where obviously he's been looking to have a bit of time away, so he's allowed to go home and spend time with the family, but it seems to be to the detriment of then what he can do on the field. Or do you keep him here almost against his wishes?
You can do both. They're not mutually exclusive. You can do both, having kind of been in that situation. You can actually get home, have some time off to relax and unwind, and then at the same time come back and train. I think you're right, Shawnee. The issue is the fact that he's had some injury niggles, and if you're not here in town and you're not kind of getting that treatment, or you're not able to get out the track, then when you're coming off a low base and only your second year, it's just going to be a really challenging, a long slog for them, particularly when the rest of the cattle around him are young and evolving in their own game style.
Yeah, he's an absolute gun. I hope that in the next couple of years he sticks around for the West Coast Eagles. But the Victorian teams are circling. They're absolutely circling at the moment because they know there's more to come from this guy in the future. But he's not Dacos or he's not Harry Sheasel at this point in time. But in time, he's going to be that player who can turn the game on its head, as we saw last year at times.
Which means, well, that's it. The interstate clubs can be patient with him and come and pick him off later on. Perhaps we'll see.
Pav, I wanted to change tack just for a second because I saw Lockie Kennedy take out the 200 metres in Victoria at the Athletics Championships, beating Gout, and we've been speaking about Gout. Rove, you would have been seeing him. And the national champs are actually taking place over here at Perry Lakes very shortly. So the crowd there was amazing at Athletics at the track in Melbourne, and we're expecting exactly the same, but it didn't go all his way the other night.
No, it didn't. And talk about young players or young athletes in the spotlight. This guy's got even more hype on him than Harley. Incredible scenes, and the crowds were enormous. And I think so. Next weekend, I think it is here in Perth. The AFS Championships down there at Perry Lake should be fantastic. And I expect to be similar types of crowds. Athletics is having a little renaissance period. People are coming back to it not only because of these two athletes, but Nina Kennedy and a few others here in Perth, being fantastic. Jessica Hull, I think, is the other one. Matt Denny, a couple of our athletes across at the Paris Olympics did so well. And, I expect huge crowds here. But, that pressure, to handle that expectation externally and then just go and execute, whether it's running or playing a game of footy, can be a serious challenge for some of our young athletes. But it should be fantastic in a couple of weeks' time.
Looking forward to it.
Well, we appreciate the time, Pav. Thanks for chatting with us.
Good on you guys.
Good on you, Pav. See you soon, mate.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Shaun Sport in podcast form.
Footy is officially back in this season. The place to watch AFL live on Saturdays is on Fox Footy, available on KO Sports. Every round with no ad breaks during play, and you'll be able to check out the fine work of Alistair Lynch, who's about to join us now, Rove. In fact, Alistair, you'll be up and about over the Queensland teams over the weekend?
G'day, fellas. Absolutely. It's been I don't think it's ever happened when the two Queensland teams are up there and in the top four. So it's a bit of an anomaly, and great to see the Gold Coast finally actually show that they might be a chance for the top 8.
They were looking very dominant, very dominant. They sort of looks like they might be staking their claim this year.
Well, you've seen them firsthand over there in WA a couple of weeks ago, and I think they've had emerging players for quite a while, but it's been very reliant on the older fellas like Tuke Miller and Jared Witts. But now all of a sudden they can play a bit more of a supportive role, and Noah Anderson and especially Matt Rao, they're genuine stars. Then you've got a couple of reasonable forwards coming along as well with Reid and Walter and Ben King. I mean, I think we've all seen the emergence of these big kids these days. I mean, if you're not 204 centimetres, you're almost short these days in AFL footy.
It's amazing, Alistair, and you know what? You talk about Matt Rao, by the way, how dominant he's been, but he's going to be dominant for Geelong next year, I would have thought too. But, getting back to it, you're a solid 6'4", aren't you? You were full forward, kicked 100 goals, you've done it all. So you'd probably be playing in the midfield these days, the way things are going.
Well, I can guarantee I wouldn't be playing in the midfield because I couldn't run with them. But no, you're right. You're spot on. When I first came in at 6'4", there was only a couple. I was sort of the taller end of key position, so in the mid to late 80s. The probably ones that, Stephen Kernahan was taller than me, but you had Dunstall and Brereton, two of the absolute greats, were 6'1", 6'2". But now, part of my role with Fox Footy, you get to interview all these great athletes. But standing next to Patrick Cripps, man, he towers over me. Man, he must be all of 6'5", so he's Kernahan size. Yeah. And then, so I've had a few screenshots taken when I've been interviewing the likes of Jared Witts and Ben King and these guys. They're superb athletes, but I reckon almost back in our day, the big guys were like big dinosaurs that would lumber around, but now they're winning the 3K time trials as well, which is ridiculous.
Hey, look, can I just do a shout-out for the little blokes, though? Debutant Dudley for the Dockers.
Oh, yeah.
The shortest player in the AFL.
168.
168
centimetres.
2 goals on his debut in a derby, which it puts a lot of pressure on him, but it just goes to show the little fellas can still get it done.
Oh, absolutely. There's still a role for the little fellas. I suppose almost the smaller you get, you've got to have something special, and obviously it looks like he's got some great talent. But even the fact of how he's been listed, so he was a late sign-in, and 3-4 weeks down the track, he's playing his first game of league footy. So I think that's what is exciting about either the supplementary listed players, mid-season recruits, to see players continually come in, and especially when you're sort of redeveloping your team or looking to surge up the ladder. Younger players coming in can add a real spark to the older guys that are on the list.
Now, that was a big sigh of relief, I think, for every Fremantle fan, because a loss would have been very detrimental to us at this point.
Big time.
And it just got me thinking about your old running mate, Vossi. We've got the Blues are struggling at the moment. Now, he was saying in his press conference after the game that there's still, in his words, plenty of runway left in the season. But at this point, for any fans who are sitting there looking at their teams, it seems like if you're not getting those wins now, is it already over?
No, I think, it's not. I think there was a bunch of us last year that was put a big red texter through the Brisbane Lions. When
Collingwood were, I think at that point last.
Well, you're right, Lynchy. Yeah. So Brisbane were 1-5. Hawthorn was 0-5.
Wow.
Yeah, so a big turnaround. So I think that's helped out a few of these coaches in their press conferences this year. Say, look what happened last year. But it actually goes longer than just this year.
Yeah.
I think Carlton have won 2 games in the last 12. So that's not good at all, and a real concern. And I reckon that, as we see, like West Coast against Brisbane were really good for half a game, then dropped off. I think what we see in the competition these days, teams can play at a very high level, but the bottom teams just can't maintain it. That's what Carlton are doing. Carlton look impressive at times, but they just can't finish off games, and that's been their biggest issue, sort of making the most of their time when they've got the ball and scoring, but not scoring goals, and then they're just dropping away late and getting run over. And so, massive concern for Carlton, massive concern for Brisbane, and I think even looking at the West Coast Eagles, I think there's promise there. And again, in horrible conditions last week against Brisbane, I thought there was very positive signs.
I think they're in all sorts going forward, though, Lynchy, because the great man Jerry McGovern got injured yesterday, which is a big loss. Harley Reid was nowhere to be seen again.
Yeah.
There's a few worrying signs, and I think from a midfield perspective, there's too many holes for them to fill, and I get what you're saying. Like, they can perform for a half, but they're going to just drop away just because there's too many gaps in their list.
No, yeah, you're probably right. With McGovern out, I mean, one of the probably premier defenders over the last decade. But, I think over next week, if you're going to play GWS at their home ground without McGovern and a couple of their really good players not playing well, like Ken Kelly dropped off again after a good game against Brisbane, and you're probably better positioned to tell me what's going on with Oscar Allen. I mean, he's been a young rising star and obviously the captain of the club, so a lot is on his shoulders to lead his young team. But, he's just having a shocker at the moment.
He is. I'm not sure if he's carrying an injury. I mean, it's the start of the season, so you shouldn't be. Whether he had an interrupted pre-season, I know in the last couple of seasons he's been injured. But, he's devoid of confidence, and one of the things that they're struggling with is inside 50, so he's not getting too many bites of the cherry, mate.
No, that's right. And I suppose with Govs going down, they put him back. You don't want to have to do that, but it might be the go just to get the ball in his hand a bit, just so he can get his confidence up. Yeah, certainly playing key position forward when you're having a couple of lean weeks, you can be just purely marked on goals. But if there's not a lot of nuts coming down there, it can be a tough gig. So I'll be at that game, the GWS West Coast game for Fox Footy. So, looking forward to seeing how he goes and how he leads again next week.
Good luck to the Eagles this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. They will need
Just
it.
hope the plane's running late. Might save some face. Could be getting nasty down there, Lynchy.
Sean? Sean, did you ever have your plane running late? Because,
Mate.
You guys flew all the time. It's extraordinary what you did.
Oh, yeah, we had an absolute belter one time when the plane couldn't take off. We got on, and then there was a mechanical problem, so they put us back in the Qantas
And the longest,
lounge.
it's the longest flight in the country too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we ended up at Melbourne's, I reckon, by the end of the night there, Lynchy.
Oh, how good's that? I was playing for Tassie once, and we had to play the VFA in Melbourne.
Yeah.
We took off at 6:30 in the morning, couldn't land, ended up having lunch in Canberra, and we got to the ground half an hour after it started.
Oh, look,
And,
at that point you just say to the bus, just drop us at Movie World and we'll cut our losses.
Ship us off. We're done.
We're done. Stick a fork in it. Good on you, Lynchy. Really appreciate your time, mate. As I said, everything's
absolute pleasure.
Good on you, mate. New to KO, visit kosports.com.au and get on board today.
Shaun Sport is a Nova podcast. For more great comedy shows like this, head to novapodcast.com.au.